I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, the BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Welcome to our Naughty and Nice Christmas show, Jordan.
Well, Merry Christmas, Jim, to you, to all the listeners and viewers out there. Thanks for having me and for giving this platform for folks like me to talk about taxes and other things important to the average guy in British Columbia.
Now, of course, we always have a naughty and nice list, about 10 items, although you've added an extra one that perhaps we should talk about.
Yeah, a late-breaking addition to the naughty list. I'm going to throw Todd Stone and ICBC on the naughty list here. Stone's come through and said we're going to raise ICBC rates 4.9% next year. And we're going to conduct a major review, a soup to nuts review, he calls it, of ICBC to find ways to save money going forward. I appreciate that, but I do find it very cynical that this independent review isn't going to come back until after the May election, so we're not really able to use it to grade whether the BC Liberals have been properly managing our car insurance monopoly.
Well, why is it they do this before an election? It seems to me the last election they did the last thing.
Yeah, actually 2012 was the last time an audit was done. So it was kind of nestled in between the Christy Clark taking over as premier and her first election in 2013. But, that audit found, it was pretty damning for ICBC. They did one on BC Hydro and TransLink at the same time. All three just showed what messes those public corporations were. ICBC had apparently they ballooned their $200,000 a year or more staff. There was all sorts of bonuses, a culture of wild spending. So certainly be interesting to see once we do get back this independent report, have things actually improved at ICBC and what recommendations are there for the corporation going forward.
Well, right. And if they'd been doing a good job of running it in the first place, they wouldn't have to call a special audit. Well,
exactly. And, we, of course, can point out that the government's taken $1.2 billion out of ICBC since 2010 in dividends. That's no small amount of money, and it's gone into general revenue, which means that, auto drivers have been subsidizing the rest of the taxpayers.
Well, so that's at the top of the naughty list. Also, a question for my executive producer. He wants to know if the election of Trump and Brexit is a symptom that the electorate is just tired of people constantly dipping into their bank account, asking for more taxes, more fees, more charges.
Yeah, I think it is. I think this is the number one issue for the provincial election, cost of living. And I think the political party that best comes forward with a package of reforms, tax breaks, better management of these crown corporations, the leader who has the best plan to better manage the cost of living is going to win the next election. Horgan and the NDP are putting together their plan. Weaver and the Greens have theirs. And of course, Clark and the Liberals are putting together theirs. So it'll be interesting to see, which way the public decides to go.
Well, first of all, what about medical services premiums? They're not charged on the basis of what you can afford. Everybody's given one like a flat tax.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's another one that needs to be dealt with. All the parties are coming up with their own political platforms for it. We'll see in the February budget what the Liberals do with it. I'm hopeful. I'm excited. I think the Liberals may actually finally take the drastic step of winding down those premiums. I know the other two parties are willing to do the same. It's just a matter of giving them the kick in the pants they need to finally address that really unfair tax.
What about the $37,500 interest-free loan to new home buyers from the BC government? Doesn't that, if you put a 7% tax or a 7% commission on that to the real estate agent, well, that's a $2,600 bribe to the real estate association, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really suspicious that it seems like the only people who came out publicly supportive of this tax or of this loan program were the BC Liberals and then realtors and developers and economists that were connected with the real estate industry. If you didn't take money from the real estate industry, you didn't like it. I mean, Tom Davidoff, a couple of SFU economists, they were pretty clear that they felt this was a bad idea. I agree with the economists that it is a bad idea. It's going to drive up the cost of housing at the lower end because there'll be more people in the market for it. And the far better solution is to kick City Hall in the butts all across the province. Get them to start processing new housing applications faster. Let's get some supply into the market and bring down costs at this lower end so we can get young people into the market that way.
Well, the city of Vancouver, now Mayor Robertson wants to ban natural gas, the cheapest form to heat your home. Electricity, as we're finding out in Ontario, is horribly expensive. And in some of their building rules, you're not allowed to have doorknobs. You have to have door handles. Doesn't that boost the cost of a home as well?
Yeah, the only doorknobs we're allowed to have are the ones we elect, I think, Jim. That's the problem. Now, Gregor Robertson actually headlines our naughty list this year. Just a miserable performance by Gregor Robertson, a very expensive one for taxpayers. I'm not sure he did anything this year except make life more expensive for the taxpayers unfortunate enough to live in the city of Vancouver. We've talked about the points you make on building codes and natural gas ban, but also, the Airbnb tax, the vacant home tax. He raised property taxes twice the rate of inflation, then tacked on the fentanyl increase. He pushed through a TransLink property tax hike and fare hike. Just incredible amounts of new taxes and new bureaucracy at City Hall to enforce them. Really a terrible year for Mayor Robertson. And most importantly, he ducked you for an entire year, Jim Goddard. And that to me is unforgivable. When will we finally hear Gregor Robertson answer your question? Things like that need to change.
Jordan, to be fair to the mayor, it's only been half a year since I started my interview requests.
It's only been 6 months, and he has not even had a spare 20 minutes at all in those 6 months. He's been so busy raising our taxes and coming up with stupid red tape that he hasn't been able to spare you 20 minutes. So.
And he's got to hang another environmental-friendly plaque on the wall. That takes a long time, too, I hear.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing, and Vancouver is such a great city. You just wish that it wasn't so expensive to live there, and the mayor of Vancouver, millionaire a few times over, he clearly has a different understanding of affordability than most people living in his city.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after the break.
GEM International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. GEM International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, so the number one naughty on your list, who is the number one nice thing that you're happy about?
All right, well, there's a gentleman named Irv LaRue. He's from Prince George. Most people have never heard of him. He's never going to run for elected office. He's not a politician. But what he is he's a little guy who owned a campground in Valemount, BC, and he got screwed over by the Canada Revenue Agency 20 years ago, and he fought them. Took them to court, won some decisions, lost others, kept fighting. Eventually has now settled with CRA. But most importantly, he's won an important court precedent. It's called duty of care. And because of Irv LaRue, judges and lawyers can now argue that CRA owes a duty of care to the taxpayers to treat us with respect, to handle our information professionally, and to give us a chance to defend ourselves. This is a court precedent that's already being used across the country. It's spreading like wildfire. Tax lawyers are still digging into all the ramifications of it. So one of those little people who gave up a lot, but has delivered something important for all taxpayers.
So we should memorize the style of cause and LaRue versus Her Majesty in the right of Canada?
CRA, yeah. LaRue versus CRA is I believe the official name of the case. If you Google LaRue duty of care, you'll find a number of tax expert blogs, which, let me tell you, there's nothing more boring than reading a tax lawyer's blog. But they're citing it, and it is pretty interesting to see how they're trying to use this duty of care to, better protect taxpayers, which we appreciate.
Well, the whole idea of government is to do what's best for the taxpayer, not what's best for them, isn't it?
Well, that's theoretically, but under the law, they never had to really prove that they were doing that or anything. So now we're trying to turn the tables on the CRA a little bit and give people a fighting chance when they go to court.
Okay, so let's run down the rest of your naughty list.
All right, the rest of the naughty list, we talked about Gregor Robertson, Todd Stone. Victoria Mayor Lisa Helps made the naughty list. Lots of issues in Victoria. Homelessness is a huge one. Empty storefronts another. But she still, raised property taxes, helped contribute to a major sewage treatment plant bill. But, still managed to blow a bunch of money on some pretty frivolous things. So there's a theater in Victoria called McPherson Theater. 3 years ago, it was revealed that city taxpayers were subsidizing every ticket sold there by $30 a piece. So the city said, we're going to do some hard marketing. We're going to bring down that subsidy. And after 2 years of spending thousands of dollars to try to improve it, better present it to the public, the subsidy was $27 per ticket. So Helps did a really, I think, crafty thing. She essentially handed over the theater to the Capital Regional District to get it off the Victoria books and onto CRDs. Only problem is, the only subscribing community to that function is Victoria, so it's the exact same taxpayers. It just comes under the CRD bill instead of Victoria's bill, and that's really a very cynical, crass thing to do to your taxpayers to try to disguise that cost.
Number 3 on your list?
BC Transit. So this is the transit service for everything outside of the Lower Mainland. They spent $40,000 for an online video to promote a bus route to the Salamis, Chief, and Squamish. The problem is that bus route doesn't exist. And for every social media like that video got, it cost taxpayers $195. When we in the Squamish Chief newspaper complained about this, the BC Transit spokesperson called our criticisms picky. Later on, a provincial audit was done at BC Transit, showed that they weren't just wasting $40,000 on online videos. They were wasting millions on Sunday bonuses for staff, idle drivers, bonuses and car allowances for executives, and a whole lot more. So if we're being picky, I think it's fair to say that Santa's just picked BC Transit for the naughty list.
Sure, and Santa feeds a little lichen and hay to his reindeer and gets around for free.
Exactly. Well, the funny thing is, like, some of the social media comments on that video, people were genuinely excited. Like, I can finally take a bus to the Salamis Chief. This is great. And BC Transit had to circle back and say, no, actually, merely for video purposes, there is no bus that will take you to the Chief.
Well, while they're at it then, why don't they have buses taking me to Fort Knox to collect gold?
Well, I think what happened was an Alberta film company got the contract to do this. I think they fell in love with the beauty of the Salamis Chief. It's a gorgeous video. I mean, these two climbers come down the face of the rock and then get on a bus and drive off in that kind of classic, BC view that, Squamish can provide. The only problem is it didn't really happen.
And it was produced by an Alberta company, not a BC one.
Well, exactly. It's not even like the money stayed in British Columbia. It went out to Alberta.
Number 4 on the naughty list.
All right, Andrew Jacobite and the Penticton City Council, all they did this year was fight with their residents. So for some reason, Jacobite and City Council decided they wanted to put a private water slide park into a public park along Skaha Lake. And this ticked off the residents of Penticton. Rallies, petitions, thousands of people, court challenges. They were just working so hard to try to get this overturned. The city spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to, educate the so-called stupid public for daring to oppose their brilliant idea. In the end, they had to renegotiate the contract with the waterslide park. That cost them even more money. Just a complete debacle, made worse by the fact that during that time, Jacobite and City Council approved the hiring of a public engagement officer that went along with a communications manager. We, of course, at the time pointed out the problem isn't that the public is not engaged in Penticton. The public is very engaged. The problem is Mayor Jacobite wasn't listening. And bluntly, we elect mayors and councillors to be the public face, the eyes and ears of the public in these organizations. There's only, if you want a public engagement officer, look in the mayor's office. That's who should be doing it.
What else is on the naughty list?
Well, that's it for the naughty list, but I've got 3 names for the nice list. We talked about Irv LaRue. We have Mike DeYoung, the BC Finance Minister, and this was the closest call for me. I really could have put him on the naughty list for the MSP tax, for BC government falling further into debt. But in the end, balanced budgets in Canada are so rare, balanced operating budgets. In fact, only 2 provinces have them this year, British Columbia and Quebec. Quebec is padded by the fact that they collect almost $11 billion in equalization payments from the rest of Canada. BC balanced their budget without those kind of equalization payments. So for that, you've got to give Mike DeYoung a tip of the cap and put him on the nice list.
And of course, the federal government still seems to have its eye on very expensive jet fighters. Why don't they just say, instead of going to a bid thing, I mean, they are getting a handful of Super Hornets, and here's where you save money as a taxpayer. The Super Hornet's just a 25% bigger version of the Hornets the Canadian Air Force already flies. You don't have to retrain your mechanics on how to work on it. You already have the basic equipment. It's just everything's 25% bigger, but it uses 25% less fuel.
Yeah, but, Jim, you're thinking logically. We can't have that in government. We need the biggest, shiniest, most expensive things so taxpayers will think that government's doing something. That's the problem is governments get big projectitis, and they think they always have to be cutting ribbons on something splashy and new rather than just doing the smart, quiet things that keep society running in a healthy and safe manner.
Right, and I just saw a report on CTV, good investigative reporting on their part. The proposed bridge to replace the Massey Tunnel between the Greater Vancouver area into Delta is a giant bridge similar to the Port Mann, but if they went and just build tunnels, it would be at a fraction of the cost. They just don't look pretty.
Yeah, well, there's seismic issues and whatnot. I mean, I haven't seen the report. I'd want to sit down and look at some of the technical stuff, but it's definitely a giant bridge. And you do wonder. The problem though with the Massey Bridge is this. So right now during rush hour, you have 3 lanes going one way, it's still backing up. So you can see why the Liberals want to have at least 4 lanes, plus you want to have the HOV lane, right? So that's when you get to 5. You multiply that by 2, then you have the 10-lane bridge. I think they're very sensitive to the idea that, 20 years from now, they don't want to be hearing complaints that they built a bridge too small. Maybe they feel like that was done in the past. So, it's a tough one. I mean, the price tag for that bridge is just astronomical, and you wonder, why it is that South Fraser drivers are the ones who always have to pay these tolls to make it happen.
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. And again, neither the Port Mann or the Massey Bridge have plans to put rapid transit on it. If you want to get rid of the congestion with the cars, I mean, anywhere else they've put SkyTrain. You've reduced car traffic by tens of thousands of cars a day, so you don't have to build as big a bridge.
Well, it is odd to me that we don't put rapid transit where the cars go. All those drivers on Highway 1, you wonder why there isn't rapid transit along that route. You have the right of way in place. You don't have to elevate it. But, you'd have to ask the planners. They seem to know better than us common sense people. I guess you put the rapid transit where people aren't, so you can build around them. It's a strange decision that was made in the 80s and has been perpetuated over and over again since.
Yes, and every rapid transit line built in the Greater Vancouver area, the Canada line, for example, they told us it would take 5 or 6 years to get 200,000 riders a day. It had 200,000 riders the very first day it opened.
Yeah, and I think they actually under-projected that. I mean, they made a mess of the projections there. They should have known just from the bus routes. A big chunk of those were just changeovers from the buses that used to run along that same corridor. They just blew that call, pure and plain and simple.
And they call it critical mass as well. When you get that many passengers, they pay for the operating costs. Yes, the government paid the capital cost, but the day-to-day operations are paid for by the riders. So building it really is not a huge cost at all. And again, you can build smaller bridges, smaller streets, less wide highways if you put rapid transit in. Do you think there's kind of a fix with the real estate industry to sprawl in the suburbs and the construction industry as well?
No, the suburbs are way different than they were, even 20 years ago. I mean, multifamily housing starts in Langley compared to single-family housing starts running about 8-to-1 now. So you don't have the same sprawl issue. Frankly, part of the problem is, the reason why land is so expensive is the agricultural land reserve. We've made a conscious decision as a society to value south of the Fraser farmland. We want it for food production, and unfortunately, things that don't produce food, but we want it for that and not for housing. So that's really what's constrained a huge constraint on the land cost. There's actually a fascinating editorial about this in the Globe and Mail today, in the BC section by an SFU prof. That's probably worth a read.
Jordan, thank you so much for putting together that list, and may you and your family have a great Christmas and a very happy New Year.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jim. I hope Santa is good to you. You're always on my nice list, so don't worry about that.
I'll do my best to see if I can get onto the black side. Jordan, thanks again.
Thanks. Take care.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, the BC director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, the website taxpayer.com. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. On YouTube, we're Talk Digital Network. Questions can be emailed to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.